Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. This segment started as a bit of a gag. We've been talking about unacknowledged privilege in the creative industry. We've jokingly referred to the stench of privilege, which we've delved into in another segment. What does it mean? In this segment, we thought it would be fun to find a couple of interview quotes that exemplify the stench of privilege, and we jokingly called it a stench-off. But the deeper we delved into why these quotes bothered us, the more serious we felt about how entitlement impacts not just the entitled, but all of the working creatives who would benefit from a fairer landscape, one where connections and a financial advantage are not as important as the quality of your work. Are we being overly harsh and critical? Are stenchers even a thing? You be the judge.
Really, this is a stench off. Who has the biggest stencher?
Ooh, I like that. And are we going to decide in this segment, or are we going to ask listeners to weigh in, or both?
I think, we can have a moment where we, if it's obvious.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, this is obvious. But, please, listeners, weigh in. Send us your stenchers. We'd love to hear from you about this. But but if it's close, then let's lean on the listeners to break a tie.
Yeah, I love that.
So who wants to go first?
Why don't you go first?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
All right. So the source is the New York Times book review. I won't give a name, and I won't list or it mention where this person is from, other than to say it's an area of the U.S. that one would expect to be rather overloaded with artistic stenchers.
Oh.
So the question is, describe your ideal reading experience. When, where, what, how? The response: in a hot bath on a cold winter afternoon, with a gripping novel, the house quiet, dogs worn out after a hike, and fast asleep. My bathtub is enclosed in blue tiles, and sun pours through the skylight overhead, and steam wafts off the bathwater and evaporates into bone-dry air. I like to look up from my book and realize with a happy jolt where I am, then immerse myself again. Bath, book, close.
Can you smell that?
Yeah, I'm catching something pretty.
There's a stench.
There's a bougie stench.
Bougie stench.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know what to hate more about that whole thing. It's just the blue tiles. Fuck you. Hot bath. Fuck you. Cold winter afternoon. Fuck you. The dogs are tired. Clearly, you just walked them.
Yep.
Fuck you.
And for those of us who live in an area where steam does not evaporate into bone dry air, fuck you.
Fuck you.
Yeah. For your weather privilege.
Yeah. And well, it's just okay, so maybe my problem here is the time of day. I don't know, because sunscreen in winter. It could be a weekend. This person might well work a 60-hour week, but that is not the vibe I'm getting.
No, I'm feeling like, why is this person not working?
That's what I always think.
Is this is not, well, my ideal, after I finish my double waitressing shift and have, sat down and pounded out 1,500 words of my novel that I'm desperately trying to get some momentum on. That feels good.
That's acceptable.
This because the key sort of line here is the house quiet, dogs worn out after a hike.
No, maybe that's
it. Yeah. So this is not after my landscaping job.
Yeah.
Or my dog walking job, for that.
Right. Dogs are still locked in the van. Oops.
Yeah. Sorry, friend.
Next to the whining
It's
toddler I
rather,
forgot about.
yeah, rather hot, dry air.
Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, so there's my stench off. That's my player.
Impressive. I can smell it from here, and I'm in a different country. So I love it.
Yeah. But 3,000 miles, three time zones, an international border away.
Oh,
And yeah, your eyes are watering.
yeah. Tears of envy. Actually. I want to go have a bath, but I can't.
Yeah, we might have to at some point acknowledge, yeah, we're a little envious here.
maybe there's maybe there's a backdraft of green cloud envy, and every time we talk about stencher. All right. Okay,
Okay.
that's a good one. So I'm going to do as you did. First, the source is Poets and Writers magazine.
Can be an awesome source.
Yes, and this is actually, I have back issues. So this one is from 2015.
Okay. Good.
And I did some research on the stencher.
Okay.
Because I was just really curious. Could they possibly be as stenchy as this made them sound? Okay. All right. It's first person. In 2003, I went to McDowell for the last time. It was a bit of an emergency. I had a book that needed finishing and a relationship that probably needed finishing too, but that's another story. And I snuck in a couple of weeks in January. By great good fortune, I happened to overlap with the composer blank blank. Again, I'm not sure exactly how it happened. That mysterious shift from pretend acceptance, anyone not super famous usually exhibits a vague general friendliness at meals, to real recognition and trust. For the composer, a key moment came, I later learned, when he, having worn out his interest in the CDs he'd brought to McDowell, asked if anyone had anything they could loan him, and I just happened to have the complete Xenakis chamber music tucked in there with Hole and Modest Mouse.
I can feel the bile rising in the back of the throat.
I've got a sort of I'm wearing a bib because I vomited on myself 3 or 4 times when I
Yeah.
was reading, looking
Yeah,
at
there's a
this.
little, I've got it caught in my nasal passages now. And it's like this acidic bile situation.
I love a visceral response to a stencher. Now,
Yeah, it was the last part that just,
the composer bit?
yeah, yeah, the last, like I just happen to have not even just like a CD of classical music
Yeah,
or but the complete
chamber music.
chamber music.
And then, of course, you have to mention that you also have Hole and Modest Mouse just to show how well-rounded you are, you
Yeah,
know? It
I
makes me
know.
wanna throttle myself. And then
Well, it feels like it's leading up into some erotic kind of entanglement where she's
mm,
still married, but is she really married because she feels like she's already out of the marriage?
yeah, well, that's not where it leads. I will tell you that.
Okay.
So so the problem, and also this person was a McDowell Fellow 5 times between X year and Y year
Yeah.
in, like, a 15-year period. So that bothers me
Yeah.
because there's more than what like, 5 people who would like to have a month at McDowell.
Yeah. Even just 1 month.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so there's a few things that bug me about this. It was an emergency. I had a book I needed to finish. Snuck in a couple of weeks in January, like you can just sneak in.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
This gets to what we were talking about in gated opportunities,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Is who are the people that get to call up and say, "Oh, McDowell, I have an emergency. Please let me in. Find a cabin for me. Bump somebody out of the way.
yeah,
I'm sure there's lesser people who don't need it as much as I need it because I'm having a big emergency." And
yeah,
then McDowell said, "Of course, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
You're
Wow,
one of our favorites.
naturally. Mm.
We've warmed your tub. The rooftop is basically frosted, you
Another
know."
another line in this that bugged me. Anyone not super famous usually exhibits a vague general friendliness at meals. Now, are the super famous assholes, or are they even more friendly than the not super famous?
How does she know this?
I don't fucking
Because
know. Oh,
because
well, they don't. I think they have dinner together.
well, no, I mean that they spend so much time with the super famous that
I think she's saying people at McDowell who are super famous,
yeah.
not just the general super famous. But yeah, I just don't. That whole sentence makes me. It makes me feel like, what the fuck is wrong with this person?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she's got the obtuseness, the obliviousness locked and loaded.
Mhm. Locked
Like
and loaded.
she's got it in her back pocket. She's ready.
Yeah.
Bougie, creative stench. It reeks of it.
The privilege.
Positively reeks.
Yeah.
Look at all the things I can do that you can't do.
Kind of. Yeah.
And then, we're judgy, right?
Fuck yeah. Nobody's
So,
judgier than us.
and you did some research, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like, has this person really earned this artistic privilege? Has their art risen to such a level that we would be like, well, yeah, okay, I get it. You're huge and famous, and of course these things are going to happen.
Well,
Or, you know,
do you want me to tell you?
yeah, but what's your
Without
thought?
naming names. So this person is a poet, so clearly they're not super famous.
Right.
However, they've been at academia for a long time. And I did, when on reading an interview given late last year, I did actually find this person less stenchy because they really care about the fact that the corporatization of academia has meant that adjuncts are being worked to the bone. And they say something along the lines of, I've been sending people out into a job search that has resulted in pain for them, not being able to get what you thought you would get from the training you paid for. And the interviewer says, yeah, at this point, it feels almost like a pyramid scheme. And the stencher says, well, it is a pyramid scheme at this point, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So they describe the hellish existence of adjuncts, but they have been to McDowell Fellow 5 times, and they have been, you know, like high up in the academic hierarchy. That's my stencher.
I think it's pretty good. I gotta ask you, and it's interesting, I think, because hearing yours makes me feel like maybe you nailed it. You
Oh God.
I would lean, but I'm wondering if it's like we each brought our dog in, and, you know, and so you see the other person's dog, you think, oh, that was tougher. But
Well, your dog is more in the moment. Your stencher is more of a, this is a little moment I chose to talk about. You know,
yes,
out of all the things I could have talked about. Well, I guess the interviewer asked, "What's your best reading experience?" or something.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. She was queued up.
yeah. And this one
Mhm.
was also queued up. It was a subsection of this poets and writers thing hmm, on residencies. It was like several people were interviewed. This was the premier stencher. I must say, like
Yeah.
completely blew the other ones out of the water. But this was from the Spring Guide to Remarkable Retreats.
Uh-huh.
So they were like queuing people up to talk about, what's the great retreat. I guess part of the problem I had with this one is this McDowell is not an accessible retreat for most
No.
writers. And so it felt like getting your nose rubbed in the fact that somebody can just show
Yeah.
up with an emergency fucking writing fucking poem project.
Does since it's within a group that they're doing this conversation, it
Yeah,
feels
there's like
a
5
little
other.
bit like, all right, lay them on the yardstick, boys.
Oh, yeah. I
You
don't
know?
think I think it was separate interviews,
Oh,
like,
okay.
yeah, because these are all busy people. They can't get them in the same room, but, it's my understanding of it. But this was the one that I kinda went, "Ah, there's so many things stenching in here." And then I have to say there was other stenchers I found. The listener won't know about this, but, probably about 3 weeks ago, I WhatsApped James with a link to somebody who was traumatized by having their novel traditionally published because it didn't go like the way they thought it would.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of stenchy. Do your research. Publishing is going to screw with your head.
And, be resilient and
Hmm.
say, all right, this is one book. I want a career.
I felt bad pulling that one as a stencher because I really am sensitive to anxiety and mental health and all of that stuff. We've all been through the pandemic, and we've all got kids
Mhm.
who grew up with devices, or a lot of us do, and I just feel like all of that has been shit.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point is, fairness to anxiety and what it can, create and how it can cause us to make decisions that maybe aren't the wisest in the moment,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
kind of thing. So yeah, yeah. And plus to be fair too, who's to say that one trigger of anxiety isn't valid?
Yeah,
Right. I mean, there is sort of that reaction that we both have, which is like, come on, you got a big five publisher, you have an agent, you
yeah,
know, this is good. But at the same time, she's in the experience and or he and had their, it triggered.
yeah, yeah. And that's kind of the other part. I is exactly what you say. They prefaced the essay by saying, "I realize this is not actually what most people would consider a problem."
Yeah.
To have this traumatic experience by my having my dream come true.
Yeah.
They don't fit the stencher profile because the stencher profile has obtuseness and obliviousness as part of their
And bouginess.
bouginess as part of their vibe, and none of that was. So now I'm getting a better handle too on what we
Yeah.
mean by stenchers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't pick that one, but I felt this one was fair game.
Yeah. And I think too, there's this when we think about who we want to speak to and our listener and the people who are grinding it out,
Yeah.
right? And those aren't the people who can talk about bone dry air evaporating the steam from their bath with the blue tile and the dogs are blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Or I called up McDowell and said, I have a creative emergency, you know, stuff. It's like the people who are like, no, you don't have McDowell to bail you out.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you have to finish a book and you've got a deadline, or you're just feeling pressured that I haven't finished this novel I've been working on forever, we come from the world where you got to grind it out. You got to figure it out. You've got to do the like get up really early or stay up late or whatever it is that you have to do to figure it out.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
because we don't have the luxury of connections and we don't have the luxury of big bank accounts to just be like, you know what, I need to take a break. So I'm going to take a month off and
Yeah.
just focus on my.
Well, I think the part that bothers me about the McDowell aspect is that you're a chair or a dean or whatever. You're making enough money that if you need to go somewhere, you can go get an Airbnb for a month. You do not
Yeah.
need to take a cabin away from somebody who's really needs a funded residency.
Yeah. Well, was it Toni Morrison that worked for a publisher?
She was an editor for an imprint of Random House.
Okay. So, worked for a publisher and just figured out how to write around an intensely busy publishing schedule,
Yeah.
and produced some of the most amazing literature ever to be produced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and if both Pat and I are big fans of Daily Rituals and then the Daily Rituals focused on women book, do you remember the name of the author?
Um Damn, Mason Curry.
Mason Curry, and we'll get a link to those books. But the thing that I love about reading those books is a lot of the people who are really, have done amazing art, whether it's writing, visual art, dance, music, they had to grind it out. And you
Mhm.
sent me something earlier this week. Was it Philip Glass or
Yeah.
Cage? John Cage, maybe.
No, it was Philip Glass.
Philip Glass, he had to grind it out. What was he driving a taxi?
He drove a taxi. He had a moving van for a few years. He worked, I think he operated some kind of heavy machinery in a factory. He did it all. He was trying to, and when he drove the moving van, he says that he could actually get away with working 5 half days a week,
Mhm.
and support his family and still do his art. And he was when he drove a taxi, that was back when taxi drivers were getting killed all over New York, and he was still able to drive the taxi, get home at 1:30, stay up all night, take his kids to school, stay up all night actually composing music, take his kids to school, and then go to sleep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, so I'm not going to say that everybody should be doing that schedule. Like, you're not a creative if you're not grinding it out to that level, because I think that's unfair
Mhm.
too. And not everybody has that kind of energy.
Yeah.
Everybody I think has that drive, but not everybody has that energy.
Yeah, true.
But, you hear about these people who did amazing work, and they did it writing at the kitchen table with the kids screaming, or putting together their, those glass boxes with, their mother yelling at them and their brother
Mm.
yelling at them that you're creating a mess in the kitchen. And, all these stories of people who had to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of that obtuse and obliviousness, that there's a world of us out here doing the grinding who don't get to make those calls,
Yeah.
or have evaporative baths.
The evaporation that really
You
gets to
know,
you.
yeah, it really bothers me. It is humid and damp.
Well, and actually, the whole idea of evaporating is it takes a bit of time, so that's a long bath.
Yeah, that is a long bath. That is somebody you have the image of with their toe, they're able to turn the hot water on.
Oh my god.
Right? One toe lifts the the plunger, so some drains out as the hot water fills in to maintain the constant steam flow.
Okay, the rage is boiling up in me. That image of the toe, I'm
Yeah.
raging. I'm raging in here.
Yes. Yes. And like a bamboo reading board going across their clawfoot tub,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
So it's
mhm.
tilted. You could adjust the tiltage so that,
Not
you
even
know,
a word.
so you can slip back into the bath, push up because you've got this tiltage adjuster,
And then James's arm comes in through the window.
and drops a gifted underachiever's poster next to her book and runs away. So let's leave it up to the listeners. Please, we beg of you, break the tie. Let
Yep.
us. It's gifted underachievers at substack.com, or just leave a comment. It's
Yeah.
so easy. We'd love to hear.
And we want to know, who's the bigger stencher, the bathtub evaporator or the McDowell emergency booker?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. We'd love to hear how we're doing, so please leave a comment, join our chat page, or send us an email at giftedunderachievers@substack.com. Have an awesome day.